Ladies and gentlemen, it is 1825. Lafayette is reflecting on his life and on his recent travels in the United States of America. As he is wont to do, he voices his thoughts aloud to his dear wife, Adrienne, who died in 1807. He is accustomed to talking to her, so to speak, especially every Christmas Eve, the anniversary of her death. He generally spends the holiday with his Adrienne in her bedchamber, preserved as it was the day she died. Today, we see him sharing with her his thoughts and impressions of America. 50 years after he helped the colonies gain their independence from Great Britain.
Adrienne, my douce amie, I long for you to be by my side, sharing this experience with me. I miss your good heart and sensible mind to help me make sense of all that I have seen.
Je suis là, mon amour. I am here, my love. Racontez-moi tout. Tell me everything. How is America now? Is it the land of freedom that you envisioned when you first joined your banner with hers?
It is so much more and so much less at the same time. The vast open spaces that so impressed me in 1777 still continue to amaze me. They have now 24 states, and I've spent the last 13 months visiting each and every one.
And did you visit the place where you were wounded in 1777 at the Battle of Brandywine?
But of course, I was welcomed at Chad's Ford and met with many former comrades in arms. And you will remember that for my recovery, I was sent to Bethlehem with the Moravians.
I remember you speaking of this. It is near the town of Easton, no?
Yes, indeed, my love, it is. And you will be pleased to know that there is to be a college there which they will name in my honor, Lafayette College.
Mais c'est formidable. This is wonderful, my love. How good to know that future generations will know your name and associate it with higher learning. Was our son impressed by this?
George was overwhelmed by all the love shown to us by Americans everywhere. He accompanied me to all the towns and cities that we visited. The people there loved that he is named George Washington Lafayette. I explained to them that I named our son in honor of the man whom I consider to be like a father to me, and who I think thought of me as an adopted son. Mount Vernon still stands, and the key to the Bastille I sent to my dear general so many years ago is still hanging in the foyer.
Ah, the one you sent when he was president. And President Monroe, James Monroe, did you see him?
Ah, oui.
I remember him and his wife so fondly. It was so good of them to come and visit me when I was imprisoned in France during the French Revolution. I think that if he had not come in his capacity as American minister to France, I would have suffered the same fate as my grandmother, my mother, and my sister Louise, guillotined and thrown into a mass grave. But the attention brought to my situation by them embarrassed the French government, and they did not want to anger the Americans. So I owe much to Monsieur and Madame Monroe.
Yes, of course, ma chère, you are correct. It was, after all, through his invitation when he was president of the United States that I finally decided to return. And it is also true that only through luck and American intervention were you spared.
Oui.
You did well to secure all the land around the mass grave. Now the cemetery of Picpus can become our final resting place as well.
Ah oui.
Last year I laid the cornerstone to the Bunker Hill Monument, and I'm now having soil from that hallowed place sent to me here in France so that I may be buried next to you in American as well as French soil.
J'adore. I love this idea for you. You, who were so instrumental to not only the American, but the French revolutions. If not for you, my love, I think America would never have received the aid that she needed from France. It is not every 19-year-old noble who would risk the wrath of his king and my father to spend his own money to outfit a ship and men to fight in a cause that was not his own.
This is certainly true, but I believed with all my heart it was a worthy cause. I felt that the destiny of the entire world depended upon America's success. I feel so badly, though, that I left you here to deal with the childbirth and running the household. Do you forgive me this?
It is what we women do, Gilbert. I knew my role. I was happy to give you 3 living children. My heart bleeds, though, when I think of our oldest daughter, and that you were not able to be there to kiss her farewell. She was not even 2 years old when she died, la pauvre. But you were doing your part to help the American cause, and even if you had been at home, there was nothing you could have done. And your actions in America were very important.
I am just so glad we have our 2 remaining daughters. Anastasie and Virginie comfort me in my old age and remind me so much of you, ma chère. You were the best wife.
I have loved you since I was a girl of 12, and you a 14-year-old orphan. I am so glad that Papa chose you for me, that he arranged our marriage. I have never regretted anything about our marriage, Gilbert.
Even my indiscrétion, si I dare to speak of these.
I know you love me with all your heart. I also know that men need what men need, and sometimes it is more than one wife can give.
But you gave so much. I realize this now. When I was in prison in Olmutz, having fled the Reign of Terror, never did I expect to see your face in my lonely prison cell. You cannot imagine my joy, my happiness, when I saw you and the girls in the doorway. I still cannot believe that you would choose to share my prison when you had just only so recently been released from your own. And the girls. What children have sacrificed so much for a father? 2 years imprisonment is long for young people to endure.
C'est vrai, c'est vrai. But I was honored to do this for you, husband, as were your devoted daughters. I had hoped that the Austrian authorities would be embarrassed by our presence and release you. But it certainly took longer than I expected. And only with the intervention of Napoleon Bonaparte did it succeed. But I must tell you, my love, I think that if the girls and I had not come to you in that dungeon cell, you would have died there, alone.
It was the thing that saved my life. Being so alone in a prison cell makes one want to give up. Your presence there renewed my will to live. I regret also fervently that the prison hardship broke your health. I feel such sadness that your time in prison took you away from me far too early. You should have been with me on this trip, helping me to reconcile the things I did not like.
What is it that troubles you, my Gilbert? Were you not welcomed sufficiently in your adopted country? Did they not honor you as they should have?
Merci, ma douce. I was received like a king. They called me the guest of the nation and the hero of 2 worlds. I was feted and celebrated everywhere I went. No man could have wished for a better reception. No, it is just that I have seen some things that trouble me.
What is it that troubles you, dear husband? Is it the continued slavery that troubles you?
It is indeed a weight upon my heart. Never would have drawn my sword to defend America if I'd known I was helping to establish a land of bondage. I still cannot believe that Americans continue to celebrate freedom everywhere when they hold so many of our black brethren as enslaved people. It is simply hypocritical. It is not moral, and it is inconsistent with the rights of man.
I know, my love, but we tried so hard to lead the way, though. You wrote to General Washington as early as 1783 to ask him, to try to convince him to join us in our gradual emancipation experiment. And he did not follow your lead. When we bought the plantations in French Guiana, I hoped that others would emulate us.
Yes, well, that worthy experiment was curtailed by the revolution when the government confiscated our plantations in Cayenne. I know you still did your very best to keep the dream alive, though, and you did so much for the people there. It would have been excellent if our plan had succeeded.
I agree with you, husband. An educated slave can become a free man. I think your plan to educate the slaves and then free them and then have them work for pay was an excellent one. And if Washington had implemented the same plan in Virginia, perhaps others would have followed. Perhaps today the black man would be free in America. Did you see any chance of this happening as you toured the country?
I fear it would tear this country asunder. I have seen how polarized America can be. I was witness to the presidential elections there in 1824, yet I still believe in her institutions. No one candidate received the majority of the electoral vote, and Andrew Jackson received the majority of the popular vote, yet John Quincy Adams was named president by the House of Representatives, and Jackson accepted this outcome. No, there will be no revolution there over this. Slavery, on the other hand, could become the tipping point.
I am so sad to hear of this. Were there other things that you did not like?
Oui, I visited Eastern State Penitentiary last year in 1824, and while it was unfinished, I was given to understand that prisoners there will be subjected to solitary confinement, to which I am so opposed in light of my own experiences and yours, of course.
Was there no one to whom you could voice your concerns?
I dared not voice my opposition and criticize my adopted country in public after they celebrated me at every turn. I did, however, express my concerns to those with whom I dined privately.
Je comprends. And did you happen to dine with the brother of Napoleon Bonaparte? Did you discuss America and France together with him?
Mais oui, twice in fact. Joseph Bonaparte, or the Comte de Survilliers as he is now known, is well regarded there. He bought Point Breeze, a massive estate on the banks of the Delaware River near Bordentown, New Jersey. I dared not broach the topic of his brother too often, though, after all I went through with him.
You are right, of course. And who else did you meet upon your travels?
Do you remember the black man I told you about who, during the Revolution at Yorktown, worked for me as a spy and even as a double agent?
Oui, you said that he had rendered such service to the American cause that it was through his intervention that Yorktown was won. His name was James, was it not?
You remember well, ma chère. Indeed, his name was James Armistead, but he has since changed it to James Lafayette in my honor. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but he received his freedom in 1787 by act of the Virginia General Assembly thanks to a letter I wrote while visiting in 1784 that extolled his virtues and exploits during the Revolution.
Ah, bravo!
Yes, I saw him in the crowd last year in 1824 at Yorktown, and we embraced, and I'm still so proud to call him my brother-in-arms.
Ah, les frères d'armes. You had many comrades in arms. And this makes me think of Alexander Hamilton. Ah, pauvre Alexandre. And what of Madame Hamilton? I was so sad to hear of the death of her oldest son and then of Alexandre. You and I both know what it is to lose an oldest child. But her situation was so tragic. Duels, killing both, only 2 years apart. It is too terrible to contemplate. And it was so kind of them to welcome our son into their home during the French Revolution. Did you see her?
Oui, mon amour, I did see her. She is the last surviving wife of a founding father, so she is much loved and respected. She does charity work and runs an orphanage now. Oh, and I did see her son William, who looks so much like Alexander, while visiting the city of Saint Louis, an impressive city indeed.
What is it that impressed you so?
One of the most impressive things is the adherence to the law by the citizens and the citizens' respect for their officials, for it is they who choose them. There are crowds and zealous ones in America, but never would they fall into the chaos and criminality that one would expect to see in Europe under the same conditions.
Oh, freedom is the key. You and I know it well.
Yes, and the people there enjoy the freedom to pursue commerce that is unfettered by government. They have built bridges and canals and cities that were not there even 20 years ago. A truly impressive sight.
And what of the natural wonders? What did you think of Niagara Falls?
Too impressive for words. Even my secretary, Levasseur, could not adequately express the sight of it.
Ah, j'imagine. And what of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and our other friends that we hosted in Paris?
All are well, but much more aged, of course, much more so even than I. Yet I was very moved to hold them in my arms once more and to visit with them for what is certainly the last time. America is truly fortunate to have had all these founding fathers as her first magistrate in her early years. And now, happily, we see that the American form of government will outlive her founders.
George Washington, first of all. I imagine you laid a wreath on his tomb. I am certain that you wept. And I think that you probably embraced his descendants, his family. Did they keep the embroidered Masonic apron that I worked for him?
Yes, to all of this, ma chère, you have guessed well. Throughout all my travels, our two names were conjoined at all the celebrations, and I was very happy to see that this paternal hero is just as respected and revered today as in the old days.
Ah, c'est bien. C'est très bien. And were your travels somewhat easy or difficult in the wilderness?
I almost dare not tell you the most frightening part. You know, we survived a shipwreck.
Oh, mon Dieu!
You would have been so proud of our son, though.
Pourquoi?
Georges made sure that all made it to safety before thinking of himself. He ensured that I and Auguste and Bastien all made it out with not only our lives, but most of our papers and possessions as well.
Oh, Dieu merci. But how frightening. I certainly hope that no one perished.
No one did, save a small dog named Quiz that was presented by a charming couple from Charleston, South Carolina last March while visiting there.
Oh.
But otherwise, we traveled quite swiftly on steamships, and you would be amazed at the cleverness and ingenuity of the canals and locks that transported us into the lands of the Iroquois.
Are these the same Indians with whom you spoke in 1784?
Indeed, the same. I'm still pleased to know that the indigenous people there still know me as Cayula. I feel honored by this. One man came to see me and reminded me of my time among the Haudenosaunee in New York in 1784, and I asked him, whatever happened to the young brave who wanted to continue fighting against the Americans? And he replied, you are looking at him. It was he, Red Jacket.
C'est parfait.
We embraced and talked, and I had many opportunities to speak with many of the native people.
I think, unfortunately, they have had terrible things happen to them since the end of the war. Their lands have been taken by the white men, no?
Yes, this is yet another topic that upsets me. So long as the government does not always uphold the treaties it makes or uses less than honorable means to secure the indigenous lands, I cannot condone this treatment, even if the sales are legal. It still smacks too much of opportunism for me.
Quel dommage. Well, this voyage has been a wonderful opportunity for you to see the results of your bravery and your commitment to the American cause. And I am so happy for you that you have lived to see the fruits of your labors, not only in America, but at our home with our children and our grandchildren. And I am sure that you have secured your legacy, my love.
In America, I think I have secured my legacy. I hope so. I'm not so certain about my legacy in France. I would have thought that my efforts during the Revolution or my time as commander of the Garde Nationale would have assured my place in history, but...
I was so proud of you, though, then. You were such a moderating force. Even the Queen, Marie Antoinette, had to recognize it. You saved her life, after all, that time at the beginning of the Revolution when the mob stormed Versailles.
Oui, mais unfortunately, ultimately, the Queen had no great love for me. She considered me too much of a Republican and revolutionary, while the mob considered me too much of a royalist.
C'est vrai.
Truthfully, I would have been content with a constitutional monarchy, you know.
The French people have never truly appreciated all that you tried to do for our country. not least of which is our national banner, the tricolor, the tricolor of France that you invented.
Yes, but I shall still never be buried in the Panthéon, ma chère, that is certain.
No.
But I will more happily rest for all eternity beside you in Picpus, Adrienne. It is right.
Ah, mon amour, you walked the righteous path of your beliefs and never wavered from it. Had you accomplished only this, it would have been enough. But you did so much more. You established religious tolerance in France when there had been none for 100 years. You wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. You championed the right of women to have the same education as men. And you fought for the abolition of slavery in both the Old World and the New, and so much more.
Ah, ma chère épouse, my staunchest and most faithful admirer and supporter. I owe you so much, Adrienne. Thank you. Without a wife such as you by my side and on my side, I could never have accomplished so much. I love you. You have my heart.
Ah, je suis tout à vous, mon amour. I am yours entirely, my love.
Mesdames et messieurs, my dear wife Adrienne and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to have shared a little bit about our lives and my experiences in America in 1824 and 25. Never would I have thought such a visit to be possible. We should like to thank you also for your kind attention to our story today, and should there be any questions you should like to ask of us, we will be very happy to receive them now for you. Encore merci.
Merci. And we have brought some portraits and some images to share with you to elicit some conversation and questions. So I will start with those, if anyone has a question for my husband.
Monsieur. Not in Grand Stoom, I can assure you, monsieur.
No. So, did you...
You do know, correct?
No.
No, we are married in the cemetery of Picpus. Picpus is a place in Paris, in the southeastern part. It was formerly part of a convent there, and at the time of the Revolution, this was very, very far away from the center of the city, and on the edge, if you will. And unfortunately, where the Bastille stood, there was another square there at one point that was known as the Place du Trône. And the Place du Trône is where they installed the guillotine. And so many victims of the guillotine after the execution were thrown into the mass grave at Picpus. And so my dear wife Adrienne was able to secure land around this mass grave to create a cemetery which today still entails descendants of people who were thrown into that mass grave. And so since my wife's grandmother, her mother, and her sister were all guillotined and thrown into this grave, she decided that she would make this a monument to them and to all the other victims of the terror buried in that sad place. And I am there as well now. This is where we are both buried there together.
And there is always an American flag that flies above us. And 140 years after Lafayette first spilled his blood for American freedom, when America was helping France to be liberated in July of 1917, General Pershing, his soldiers and his staff came to Picpus Cemetery, and they said, Lafayette,
we are here. And the flag that flies over the grave at Picpus remained there even under the German occupation in the Second World War. Whatever that might be, I don't know, but I heard that, so I'm very grateful to know that.
So the first image that I would like to share with you is a statue of George Washington and my husband, and this is in Paris. There are not many statues to Lafayette in France because he is much more revered here in America than in France because of his moderate stance.
And this place in Paris is known as the Place des États-Unis, the square of the United States.
And then I have also some images of our properties and our children. So let us start with the children, shall we? So if we could pass these back, Thank you so much. Next one. Merci. So, as we mentioned, we had 4 children. Sadly, our first daughter, Henriette, died young. She died while Gilbert was here in America around the time that he was wounded at the Battle of Brandywine on September 11th, 1777. Then I had my daughter, this is Anastasie, then my son, George Washington, and then Virginie. Her full name was Marie Antoinette Virginie, but you can understand why we never called her Marie Antoinette. We always called her Virginie. All of our children, except of course Henriette, married for love and had children. So we have many grandchildren. I did not live to see all of my grandchildren because I died in 1807. I was 48 years old. Gilbert was 50. He never remarried, but he kept my bedchamber exactly as it was. And because I died on Christmas Eve, which is so sad because it was my son's birthday, Gilbert would come and visit me and tell me all about what he was doing in the world and what was happening with our children and our grandchildren. So I had become very ill during my imprisonment in France and then my subsequent imprisonment in Austria when the girls and I joined him in his dungeon. And when we were liberated in 1797, I had only a decade to live. But in that time, I was able to get back some of our properties, which had been confiscated by the government. I was able to recover some of our fortune and procure loans and collect rents. And 2 of the properties I will show you now. This is Château de la Grange and the Château de Chavagnac. Château de la Grange was our forever home after the Revolution. Voilà. And if we could pass those back as we see them. So that was where we made our home, and that is where I died. And the Château de Chavagnac is where Gilbert was born. His family was a distinguished and ancient family. Some of his ancestors had fought in the Crusades. One even fought with Joan of Arc and was minister to the king. And so yes, those are our homes. Does anyone have any questions about those? Très bien.
Are they open to the public?
One is and one is not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? And then finally, I have here an image. So you know that Gilbert was captured. Well, it wasn't really that you were captured. You want to explain how you ended up in...
In 1792, the French Revolution is now taking a more violent turn. Even though we still have a king and we have a constitution, which I am very grateful for because I wrote it and His Majesty Louis XVI promulgated it in 1791, the powers in Europe nonetheless declared war on France. And as a result, I left my position as the commander of the Garde Nationale de Paris, or the security forces in Paris, and assumed the role of a major general in the French army, the regular army. And I was sent to the front in what was called then the Austrian Netherlands, because it was feared that the Austrians and Prussians would try to invade France from the northeast. So I am there in the northeast. In 1792, by this time, the king has attempted to flee, because as the revolution became more radical, they began making more and more demands that the king surrender more and more of his authority. And when they started attacking the church, His Majesty felt that it was no longer possible to concede further to the revolution, and he determined that the time was right for him now to have to leave France. Unfortunately, he and the royal family were captured at a place called Varennes and brought back to Paris in disgrace, and were then under house arrest and then more formal arrest, until such time it was declared that His Majesty had betrayed the country and would have to be executed, and France became a republic. Hence the start of the more violent part of the French Revolution. Again, I am fighting by this point. I learned that a warrant is issued for my arrest because one of my duties as commander of this Garde Nationale was to ensure the safety of the royal family. And so it was felt that I was too much of a royalist and therefore suspect, and I should come back to Paris to face a hearing and a trial. I knew if I did that, I would be summarily executed. And so I said to myself, well, now is the time where I now must flee. I must immigrate like so many others of my social class had done by that point. And I decided I would come to America to seek political asylum here. And I felt that I would be treated like all the other émigrés who, leaving France, crossing the lines where the enemy against the French army stood, they would let us pass and proceed on to where we wanted to go. But no, I was actually arrested. I left with about a dozen of my staff officers, and several of us were arrested and kept as prisoners of state, or political prisoners. And eventually I was for a year in Prussia, and then eventually I was given over to the Austrians, who imprisoned me in a very dank, dark place called Olmütz, in what is Bohemia now, but part of the Austrian Empire at that time. And so that's where I was. I was prisoner of state number 2. I no longer had a name. I no longer had many rights at all. I had very little to eat, very little medical treatment. I was allowed to go out and exercise. They would take me out in a carriage and let me walk in the forest surrounding this prison. But unfortunately, there was an attempt to free me. A young American and a German tried to free me from my prison while I was out on one of these exercises, and it failed. And I was captured about 12 hours later, and then my prison became a true prison at that point. It was bad enough before, but from then on I was chained by the waist to the wall of the cell. I was given very little food, very little water, no medical treatment, no heat, and my life was very, very much in the balance at that point. And I was in that state when my dear wife and my children, whom I did not know the fate of until they appeared at the door of my cell at Olmütz.
And I can tell you that when the lock turned in the door and it opened and he saw us standing there, we all fell in a heap, crying tears of joy because we never thought that we would see one another again. Mm-hmm. And I will pass this image around. This is an engraving. Our story was known, and there were poems and songs and a play that were written about the prisoners of Olmütz. And I hoped that the sympathy that was generated by this would help to free him quickly, but it did not happen like that. And I can tell you that he did not look this good when we saw him. He was practically naked, he was completely emaciated, he was very ill, and my daughters and I, Anastasie was 18 and Virginie was 13, we spent the next 2 years nursing him back to health. But sadly for me, it would be not a good situation for my health. There we are. If you could just pass those back at some point. So does anyone have any questions about that? Or anything else? Oui?
Yeah, when you were saying how many people had to leave France and some came to America, I don't know if I have the time frame right. Is that when DuPont came here? DuPont?
Indeed, Madame, you're correct.
From France and came here.
Indeed, that is correct. Yes, it was actually it was a little bit after that because these things, the DuPont, as I recall, were involved in printing as well at that time. And the government was seeking to control what was published and what was circulated as much as news and information. And so, as I recall, the facility of the DuPont was attacked and was sacked and destroyed. And so they realized, well, now we have to leave because now that we have been attacked this way, we will be suspect of the government from now on. And so we will try to leave ourselves. And that is what happened.
Weren't they also gunpowder?
Yes, indeed, Madame.
Because that's how they came here.
Indeed.
Brandywine. You mentioned Brandywine earlier on.
Indeed.
They settled along with Brandywine.
Indeed. You know, I visited them last year in 1824 when I was in Delaware. And I actually served as the one who gave away the bride of my dear colleague there who lives in Newcastle in Delaware, who was one of my aides-de-camp during the Revolutionary War because he served in the American Army as well. And they had the wedding that day, and I was very happy to attend and to give the bride away, as you say.
How long did you and your daughters remain in prison with your husband?
2 years.
How did you get out?
Well, first of all, I was already imprisoned in France, And the only reason that I was not executed, along with my grandmother and my mother and my sister, was through American intervention. Because France was at war with all of her neighbors. And the American minister to France at that time was Gouverneur Maurice. And he said to the French government, if you execute the wife of Lafayette, we are your only friends right now, but that could very easily change. So he secured my life, but not my freedom. That would come with the next American minister to France, which was James Monroe, who came with his wife, and they came to visit me in prison. And Madame Monroe made it very clear that she would continue to come back to the prison. And this embarrassed the French officials. And so finally I was freed. And that was in 1795, I think. And then I discovered where Gilbert was being held. And using my social connections, I gained an audience with the emperor. And I let him know that if he was not going to free Gilbert, that I would no longer be separated from my husband. And I insisted upon sharing his prison with him. And my thinking was that with a wife and daughter in the prison cell with him, this would embarrass the Austrians and they would free us. But that didn't happen for 2 years. And do you want to explain about the treaty with Napoleon?
Well, what happened is that the Austrians and the Prussians and the others that were allied against Republican France by this time, their goal was to restore the monarchy in France the way it had been before the revolution. And their intention was, once the monarchy had been restored in France, they would turn me over to them to let the new royal government decide what to do with me. And so they were not going to let me go until such time as they had triumphed over the French armies. Well, this did not happen. And in fact, you've heard, I'm sure, General Bonaparte, who was a very talented general in the Republican armies. And in northern Italy, which territory belonged to the Austrian Empire at that time, he defeated the Austrians on so many occasions at Lodi, at Rivoli, Marengo, all these famous battles in northern Italy. Ultimately, the French army was poised to attack and invade Austria itself. And so the emperor realized that this dream of continuing to fight, especially to hold me, was of no consequence and no use, because they were threatened with their own invasion from a victorious French army. And so he sued for peace. And in the terms of the Treaty of Campo Formio, the Directoire government in Paris advised General Bonaparte that he was to secure the release of all French prisoners currently in Austrian hands, whether they were soldiers, prisoners of war, or whether they were political prisoners like myself. And so that is how this came about. Otherwise, I could have still remained. Without the victories of Napoleon in northern Italy, I could have remained in Austrian control for many more years.
So how many years in total were you in prison?
About 3.5. So 1.5 years or so in France, and then 2 years in Olmütz.
And that obviously adversely affected your health.
Yes, I had my face sagged, my hair turned gray, I had edema in all of my limbs. I had a limp in my left leg. Fortunately, because I am dead, you see me in perfect health. But when I got out of prison, my sisters did not even recognize me and cried when they saw me. So much I had aged.
So did the doctors today know what caused your death ultimately?
So beyond the strain on my system, it is presumed that some of the treatments that were given to me, so some have hypothesized lead poisoning towards the end. So I became very, very ill in August of 1807. So it was almost a decade after I was freed. And my family realized that it was the end. And in December, they were all around my bedside as I breathed my last. And Gilbert, I think, had a portrait of me in his hands. And I said to him, my last words to him were, "Je suis tout à vous. I am yours entirely."
At the age of 48.
Yes. Yes.
And you must remember how fragile people's health was at that time. infections could be caught very easily. That could be very, very dangerous to people, especially with compromised systems like this. And so you could be carried away with a very minor infection ultimately that would become very serious within a very short period of time.
Right.
What did your first daughter pass away from?
She had a fever. Yeah, so many children died before the age of 5 at that time. We were very fortunate that
This is irrespective of social class as well. We could
yes,
afford the best doctors, but
yes, any children of even royal children
Yes,
could die
indeed.
easily, and that was one of the reasons that people had so many children, because so many died. But we were fortunate that we 3 of our children lived to be adults. Yes. So we would like to thank you for coming here tonight to hear a little bit about this exciting part of American history. And we would ask you that you talk to the young people in your lives, because they are not learning much about their American history. And to this end, we have chosen to bring you the stories of the American Revolution. And of course, next year, we are celebrating America's 250th birthday, the semi-quincentennial, although many people are calling it America 250. We all know why. Semi-quincentennial is difficult to say, pronounce, and remember. And also, I have written a book about our story, which is written for young people. So if you have anyone in your life that you would like to share this story with who wasn't able to come tonight, if you would like to buy a book, that would be wonderful. And if you have any of the handouts, if you can just bring them up to the table, or if you cannot, just leave them on the chair and we will collect them. So, merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
merci de votre attention, mesdames et messieurs.
Merci.